A Learning Theorist Digital Story on David Ausubel. Done by Andrew Quain, Illinois State University. June 2011. David Ausubel was born in 1918 in Brooklyn, New York. He received his college degree from the University of Pennsylvania, majoring in psychology and later graduating with a medical degree from Middlesex University. In 1944, while World War II was being fought, he began his military service with the United States Public Health Service. He was assigned to work with displaced persons in Germany for the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration. Using his GI Bill, Ausubel was able to earn his PhD in developmental psychology from Columbia University, thus beginning his career as a psychology professor at many different universities, including the University of Illinois, the University of Toronto, Buren University, Salesian University in Rome, and the Officers Training College at Munich, Germany. It was in the late 1950s and 1960s that Ausubel began to write on educational psychology, focusing on his cognitive perspective. In 1973, he retired from teaching and became a full-time psychiatrist. Over his career, he has written 26 books and over 150 articles. Dr. Ausubel passed away in 2008. During the time in which David Ausubel began to focus on educational psychology, our country was in a time of celebration after winning World War II. But also, our country found ourselves at odds with another world superpower, the Soviet Union. During the 1960s, President Kennedy vowed that the United States would make it to the moon before the Soviet Union. The space race had a trickle-down effect on the American school system. Many researchers began to look at schools and focus on how students learn. Prior to Ausubel's cognitive view, the main perspective in American educational psychology was associationism. Associationism was the idea that learning was linked to stimulus. Much research was done on lab animals, and the knowledge was used to understand human learning as well. The focus of this research at this time was done on learning of rote or non-meaningful learning. At the time, Ausubel was just beginning to write his ideas on the cognitive perspective. B.F. Skinner's behaviorism perspective was dominating the psychology community. However, psychologists grew tired of the stimulus-based framework of behaviorism and began to look in new directions. Besides being tired of associationism, behaviorism, psychologists also used the arrival of computer technology as a model for human thinking. David Ausubel's theory is based on the ideas that learners learn through meaningful learning, not through rote memorization. Meaningful learning is accomplished by building on the student's prior knowledge. According to Ausubel's 1969 School Learning, the most important factor influencing learning is the quantity, clarity, and organization of learners' present knowledge. Ausubel also said in his 1968 Educational Psychology book, "If I had to reduce all of educational psychology to just one principle, I would say this: the most important single factor influencing learning is what the learner already knows. Ascertain this and teach him accordingly." Prior knowledge is to act as a scaffold so that students can learn new information. The strengths of Ausubel's theory is that all students enter the classroom with some prior knowledge. If the teacher is able to use that knowledge to bridge the gaps in cognitive structure, then new information can be learned. The weakness in the theory is that it is not practical for a teacher to build on prior knowledge when diversity in the classroom leads to 25 different sets of prior knowledge. Teachers are not able to use one common example to build new information off of. A large part of using prior knowledge to learn is in one's ability to retrieve that information when it is needed. It is what Tolving and Osler call encoding specificity. The theory is based on the idea that a person needs learning cues when information is learned and when it is retrieved from the memory. In other words, you must use your prior knowledge to remember knowledge stored in memory, and it is that prior knowledge that will help you to learn new knowledge. David Ausubel's cognitive views have many current applications, even though it was created nearly 50 years ago. Prior knowledge is still the basic building block for learning. Students do not learn from rote memorization. And lastly, when material is meaningful to the student, they will become more apt to learn it. For example, students here have learned to work in a group to use what they know about cars to discover ways to make cars more fuel efficient. This theory applies to my teaching in many ways. It is the experiences that I have had, the information that I have been exposed to, that have shaped my current teaching. Those past experiences dictate what I teach and how I teach it. I currently try to create opportunities for my students to use their prior knowledge to connect to new information being learned. I never want one of my students asking, why do I need to know this? To prevent this, I try to make material meaningful to the students' lives. In the future, I will try to build upon what I am currently doing in the classroom. I would like to make performance assessment more meaningful to students and provide them with more opportunities to use their prior knowledge to help them solve real-life problems. I would like to see my students get out of the classroom